All right, so let's jump in. This live class today is brought to you by Vorus. This is my company. We help B2B SaaS and service companies build the repeatable sales process. We have one slot opening up in March. We don't take on very many customers. If you're interested to learn if we would be a good fit to work together, go to our website and fill out the form, and we'll have a conversation about it. We don't work with very many customers, and most people I speak to aren't a great fit. So if you feel like if you're building a team right now or you have a team not performing all that well, that's when you'd want to reach out and we can talk about it. All right, real quick run through of my background. I've worked with over 80 software and service companies, helping them build a repeatable sales process. I've written 3 Amazon best-selling books. One is on cold outreach. That's called Cold to Committed. The other is on how to build a repeatable sales process, which is called 16 Steps to Repeatable Sales. And then the other one is on how to build a sales development team. That's called the Sales Development Framework. And then finally, I've helped our clients sell over 100 million in software and services. About 30% of the companies that I've worked with have been venture backed. After working with me, they've raised over 280 million in venture capital, and I've personally trained over 1,000 salespeople. So I've been around the block when it comes to kind of running and managing these sales organizations. And when it comes to sales teams, I really find 3 poisons that cause sales teams to not perform very well. And these are really common. And I'd like, if you experience these, let me know which one that you've encountered before, maybe you're currently going through. The first is the individual reps on the team don't know what they have to do to be successful. This is a very big problem. Reps should know on a daily basis what they have to do in order to hit their number. If not, that's a problem. The next one here is leadership doesn't know how to use the data to help their team succeed. So one of the big issues is you have a team that's doing all of this work. They're not performing very well. And you're like, is it the rep? Is it me as a leader? Are our leads terrible? You're asking all of these questions. And then finally, there's a culture where poor performance is tolerated. And generally, like, this is an outcome of the other two. When you don't really know why a team is underperforming, it's very easy just to accept poor performance. And if you accept poor performance, you get more poor performance. That ends up becoming a cyclical issue, which creates this culture where people don't feel like they need to perform all that well because it's no big deal if it doesn't. So these are the 3 poisons that I see often. But there's a big opportunity, and this is what I want everyone to walk away with. This is the objective I want you to have in your head, which is to create an anti-fragile sales team. An anti-fragile sales team is one that doesn't collapse when it encounters challenges. It doesn't die because of the poisons. It actually improves because of those challenges it runs into. So as your team is doing outreach and they're running into certain bottlenecks or challenges we're going to walk through today, you want to create a team that improves because of them. There's this natural iteration that happens with your sales process. Ultimately, I want you to be in a position where you have a sales process that's so dialed in that you can hire the average salesperson. They can follow your process and you're confident that they'll be able to hit their number. And then the objective is to never hire average salespeople. Okay, that's ultimately the goal here. You want to be so good, you hire the average one, they're able to hit their numbers. And my promise to you is by the end of this live class, you'll know exactly how to use sales data to improve your sales team's performance. And it's based really on 3 core principles that I want you to understand. And then we're going to jump into a spreadsheet to help you start making sense of all of this. The first thing that you really need to do is have a clear picture of your ideal state. What and how is our ideal state? What is it? What does it look like? And how do we make it real? Then the next thing you do after you've created your ideal state, which is really an on paper thing, the question is, what's happening in practice? You will need to measure what matters. While your team is doing activity, you have to measure the outcomes, the activities that they're doing, how effective they all are. So then that way you can do the third thing here, which is you actually iterate with data. Okay, so those are the 3 principles that you need to kind of enter this process with. And the first part of this is the ideal state. So there's this growth model that I like to use called the sales team calculator. So now we're going to switch into a spreadsheet. Give me a second here. I'm going to stop sharing. And then I'm going to start sharing a different screen, a different thing here. Let's actually just do this whole window, so that way we can switch between things easily. Okay, cool. So now you're looking at a spreadsheet. Let me make this a little bigger for you. All right, this is a blank spreadsheet. Again, I will give everybody access to this. You'll fill it in here. And there's also a video explainer that's going to go really in depth, step by step on what you have to do here. But let's go over an example. So these are real numbers. I'll make this a little bit bigger. If you can't see it, definitely comment, and I'll just check. I'll double check a few times here. But this is what this is an example from an actual company. Gosh, this was probably 4 years ago. We went through this exercise. This is a venture-backed company. They just raised $20 million, roughly, if I remember right. Maybe it was 18, but they raised $20 million, and they told the board their goal, their revenue goal for that year, or that next year, was going to be 2 million. So we're going to add 2 million in new revenue. Okay. Their close rate, 18%. So this is the percentage from first appointment to deal actually being closed, and now they're a paying customer. Their annual contract value is 15,000. If you don't do annual contracts, you want to do the first year revenue. If your customers stay with you less than a year on average, then use that number. So that would be LTV, lifetime value. So you can use that number if it's under a year, but if it's over a year that your customers are typically using you for, just use that first year revenue. Show up rate is 80%. So of the first meetings that get booked, the show up rate, 80% is is actually showing up to that first meeting. And then of the people who show up, what percentage of them qualify? Now 100% might qualify. If you have a really defined target market and you book appointments with people that are like really specific challenges, or they use a specific solution, they might all qualify when they show up. So this isn't like, oh, they didn't have budget. It's more like they qualified in the sense that we can sell to them. Okay. SDR pay is 80,000. That's on target earnings, so including commission, and then AE pay 150,000. So you're going to put in your numbers here, but this is what we did with this company for the example. Now, here was their plan. This is the plan that they told me that they were going to follow in order to hit their target. They're going to hire 1 SDR, 1 AE. This is going to be month 1. And then by month 4, they're going to hire another SDR, another AE. So they'll have 2 SDRs, 2 AEs. And then month 6, they'll add another 1 SDR, 1 AE. So they'll end up with a team of 6 here, 3 SDRs and 3 AEs. They also have some ramping plan here where it's 2,000 activities per month. That is a very standard expectation for me. I expect an SDR to make 100 calls per day. These are all activities, but they need to be manually executed activities. So not automated emails that go out, but if they send out personalized emails, for example, that would be included here too. So just think about how many per day and multiply that by the number of days per month on average. So in this case, I'm expecting about 2,000 activities per SDR per month. And then AEs are doing some of their own prospecting in this example as well. 800 activities per AE per month. Activity to demo percentage. So if I make 100 cold calls, if cold calls are the activity type, if I make 100 cold calls, what percentage of them actually turn into a meeting? You can see it starts at 0.3, 0.5, 0.6, and then gets up to 1%. At 1%, I'm booking 1 meeting for every 100 cold calls that I make. Okay, so that's the breakdown of the numbers here. Okay, so this is their hiring plan. Okay, I kind of influenced these numbers down here because they didn't really know. They'd never hired this team before. And these were their assumptions. I gave them the assumptions for SDR pay, AE pay, but you get the idea here. Like, these are their numbers, their expectations. And most importantly, this is the revenue goal that they said to the board that they were going to hit, 2 million. What happens when I go down here? Well, we are modeling out what the team will perform based on all of these numbers that we put in up here. And as you can see, it's red, which means bad. 1.2 million is what this team hits. That is not 2 million. So we are not going to hit the target that we're setting for the team. And the board is going to be very sad when that happens, right? So we just don't have the correct plan here in order to hit the revenue target we want to hit. You can lower the revenue target, make it more realistic, or you can change some of these numbers, but you got to be careful with what you do, because just because it works on paper doesn't mean that it works in real life. But if it doesn't work on paper, it definitely won't work in real life. So this is what they presented me with. These are the assumptions that they presented me with and their plan. Well, that didn't work. So I rebuilt it, and I want you to notice something. What is changing here? Only this section. You see, everything else is staying the same. This whole thing is staying the same. The only thing that's changing is the hiring. I hire 2 SDRs and 2 AEs up front. This company raised a bunch of money, and a big reason they raised money was to grow. So welcome. You got, this is a big number, 2 million. So you got to do big things. So I hired 2 SDRs, 2 AEs right off the bat. Then month 3, I hire another 2 SDRs. So you notice I even hired a month earlier, but I hired 2 SDRs, not 1 SDR, 1 AE. And then month 6, I hire another SDR, another AE. Okay, so that gets us to 5 and 3. So this is a team of 8, not 6. So we have more reps in this example. So we hired a lot more aggressively. Now let's go to the revenue we hit. Hooray, we did it, 2 million. Okay, cool. Let's call it a day. 2 million was revenue goal. We were able to hit 2 million on paper. Now, some of you are probably saying to yourself, which you should be, yeah, dude, you just hired way more people. Of course, you hit the revenue target. You hired more people sooner and just straight up more of them, right? You got 8 here versus 6. Well, here's what's interesting about that. The first thing I'll say is what I said earlier, like, they were the one with the big revenue goal. They were the one who raised a bunch of money. They are the ones who want to grow quickly. So you got to kind of, match the targets that you're setting. But I want to show you something even more interesting down here. So in this section here, these 2 columns, you're going to see cost of sales. There's cumulative, which is, across, the entire month, because we have some ramping here, or not the entire month, the entire year, because we have some ramping in the activity to demo percentage. But I want you to focus on this number here. So don't worry all about that. But look at this cost of sales. Let's go to the last month cost of sales. You can see 33%. That means 33% of the revenue that's generated by this team is going to pay the team. Let's go to example 1. It's 40%. And now I'm going to ask for some participation. So get ready to type in an answer here. My question for you is, remember, I hired way more people here and I hired way more aggressively. Why is my cost of sales less by a lot? How is it possible? Type in your answer. How is it possible that I hire more aggressively and more people and my cost per sale has decreased? Remember, I kept all these numbers. These assumptions are exactly the same. We didn't change the assumptions. I literally just hired more people. How did we reduce cost of sales? Let me go to the chat here. Does anybody know? It's okay if you don't know. This stumps people sometimes. I don't see anybody answering yet. I'll give you a few more seconds, see if anybody thinks they know the answer. And I don't see anybody, so I will just tell you. The answer is the distribution of reps. I'm hiring more SDRs. This is the important part. It's not that they were more productive earlier. We didn't change the activity to demo rates. What we did was we changed the distribution and we hired a lower cost resource. We hired more of them. So our cost per meeting decreased because we're doing more volume of meetings basically. And we're not paying AEs. We're not hiring more AEs to do some activity where we're overpaying for that activity. This is why the SDR and AE role got split in the first place. I'm not saying everybody should do this, just to be clear. If you have questions around if you should have SDRs and AEs, let me know. I'm more than happy to help you kind of figure that out. But what I am saying is the reason why that role, the sales role, got split into booking meetings and then closing meetings is because it drives down cost of sales. It adds efficiency. It costs less to get appointments when you're paying somebody less to book appointments. There's also some other advantages too. You get less peaks and valleys and stuff. So there's advantages there. But that's what's happening here is I'm hiring more SDRs. Very, very simple. It's a ratio. Okay, so that's the sales team calculator. Do this and figure out like, hey, what's the team I want to create and what revenue target or what team is required to hit the revenue target that I have, and be conservative with some of your estimates. There's a video here that walks through this that I recommend you watch, and I'll give you a link to this, but I recommend you watch that so that way you can have a lot of, guidance when you're building this out yourself. Okay. That's creating your ideal state. Now let's talk about measure and iterate with data. We use a tool called the Sales Metrics Analyzer. It's more of a framework than it's a tool that you're gonna have to use every time, but I'll give you the framework here. You should be tracking a lot of these things already. Now, what are we looking at? These are different stages from never hearing of us to actually closing and being a paying customer. We start with activities. By the way, it goes for inbound and outbound. I don't care if you're doing inbound leads or outbound leads. I'm tracking activities against leads. This might be a cold call. This might be cold email. This might be messaging somebody on LinkedIn. Manually executed. Okay. I do not count any automated emails going out as the SDR's activity. And I'm stressing this because a lot of people do for some reason. They look at like the activity for the SDR and they're like, yeah, my SDR does like 300 activities a day and it's just a bunch of automated email. And just side note here, I am very skeptical if your SDR should be responsible for email at all, just as a side note. But either way, we got activities here, which is 5,500. So let's use cold calls for this example. We're making 5,500 cold calls. So that's activities. Engagements are people who answered the phone, people who replied to an email, replied to a LinkedIn DM. This is the number of engagements that we get as a result of the activity that we do. So 5,500 activities, 10% of them engage with us. So maybe we made 5,500 calls and we spoke to 550 people. Then there's the appointment. So of the folks who engage with us, how many of them actually booked an appointment? So in this case, 3.1% of people we speak to over the phone actually book an appointment with us. Then we keep going down the funnel here. 17 appointments, 76.5% of appointments actually make it to deal stage 1. So they actually showed up, they had a conversation with somebody. That's deal stage 1 in this example. You might do it differently, but you get the idea. Like we have these different drop-off points, right? Because deal stage 1, only 46.2% of them make it to deal stage 2. And then from deal stage 2 to deal stage 3, only 66.7% make it there. From deal stage 3 to close 1, 75% make it there. So that's how you're tracking the drop-off across every stage, from the activities that we do all the way down to close 1. So let me ask you here, if these were your numbers, what would you focus on? Which percentage here would you focus on? Type into the comments which percentage you would focus on. We have the activity to engagement percentage. Maybe we send 5,500 LinkedIn DMs a month as a team, and 550 people respond to our LinkedIn DMs. Is that good? Is that bad? Where would you focus? Maybe of all of the deals that get to deal stage 2, only 66.7% of them make it to deal stage 3. Would you focus there? If these are your numbers, where would you focus? Let's see what you guys got. And again, I will answer all questions in like give me like 3 more minutes here, 5 more minutes, and we'll go. Engagement to appointment conversion. Engagement to appointment conversion is what Rob believes would be where his focus would go. Appointments to deal stage 2 would be ESs. That 3.1% is what Lucas says. Okay, great stuff. I can tell you from my perspective here, I would first focus here at the 3.1% because it's highest up the funnel. It'll drive more appointments down. And then I would focus on deal stage 1 to deal stage 2, which I think somebody else said. So really, really good stuff there. The rule of thumb that I try and follow is if there's a big deficiency near the top of this is generally where I like to focus first, because it creates a lot more appointments and things moving down. So like, let's say this 10% was actually 3%. I would focus there even before I focused here. Cool. So that's how the Sales Metrics Analyzer works. And I will share these both with you at the end. But that's how those work. So let's close the loop here And let me just walk through why this whole thing works. Why this works when you create your ideal state, you're tracking the right metrics, and then you're iterating with data like we talked about. You're identifying which percentage you want to work to increase, and then you work to actually improve that percentage. It works because, first of all, you'll understand exactly where your bottlenecks are. When you have that kind of visibility, you can then look and go, okay, where are my bottlenecks? And then you work on those bottlenecks. You'll have a clear idea of your team's performance at each stage of your process. It gives you a lot of clarity. Hey, this is what our performance looks like. This is where we're struggling. You do this, by the way, you can do this on a team level. That's what you should be doing on a team level. But the next step is do it on an individual level. Maybe Sarah is incredible at getting deals from deal stage 1 to deal stage 2, and Jeremy really struggles at that. Sarah can help Jeremy, right? All right. And then the third one here is you'll get a specific area to actually try and optimize. That's the iteration portion, right? Like, can we optimize the area that we're looking at to make it a bit better? Ultimately getting to a place where we have a sales process that we feel that we can rely on. All right, we're going to transition to Q&A here. Before I do, we do these live classes every single week. They're like this, they're quick, they're to the point, they're actionable. And if you'd like to see some of the future, the ones that we have coming up, it's vorus.com/events. Let's go into Q&A. I want to also give you guys real quick here, the survey. I just from one founder to another, I would really appreciate if you do the survey, even if you've done it before. It just gives me a ton of insight into what makes these better. And that's ultimately my goal. That's what I'm trying to do. Just make things better. Okay, cool. So that's the survey. If you could do that, that would be awesome. And then finally, I will grab these links for you so you have it, and then we'll go into Q&A. Copy link, sales team calculator. We'll go here. So that's the sales team calculator, and then the sales metrics analyzer is right here. And if you're curious about recordings, I will share, or I won't share the recording per se. I'm not going to share the recording. What I do is we put them on the website. So after, let me remove this, go back to just me. Okay, cool. So after this class, give us like 2 days or something. We post it on the website, vorus.com/events, previous events. You'll see it there in a few days if you want to catch the recording to this. But okay, let's go over some of the questions. I saw some of them come through. Let's go to the top and the first one. I have 4 different tiers of reps. Could I add 2 lines to this, and would the math still math? Good question. You would have to rebuild some of the formulas for sure. If you tell me like the different types of tiers, a lot of times we'll bundle things together as it's a higher level thing. But if you need to do like a team by team analysis, you would do one of these sales, you use a sales team calculator for each rep, like each team, which would be a different collection of reps. So that's how I would handle that. All right, Lucas has a longer question here. What if like it covers half my face because I'm like so close to it. What if the sales team is only a founder who goes by the feeling and isn't really tracking much? What would be your first steps here to get out of that situation? So how can you tell if the issue is close percentage, not enough leads, no qualification, or anything in between? This would be with a hardware product where projects take 2 to 4 years to sign, so can't really see quick results. Of course, there's an alternative to hire a rep, but how do you know the issue is capacity or bad sales process? Okay, great question. First of all, when I hear like 2 to 4 year sales process, that's not really the sales process. It just was 2 to 4 years when you met someone until they finally ended up closing, right? There was really a moment that actually initiated moving things forward. In most cases, like maybe your situation is different, but most of the time it's like, yeah, I met him at a conference 2 years ago. We had talked, every 2 quarters, we talked twice a year for the past 2 years. And then they're like, hey, now's a good time. Why don't we actually talk about what it would be like to work together. I'm tracking that from when they actually start evaluating solutions. That's when I first start tracking, it as a deal. So your sales cycle might actually be 12 months. It might be 9 months, right? You just need to be tracking at the correct point. But to answer your the core of your question here, which is, founder doing the selling, not tracking all of these things. Well, that's where I would start. If you're tracking it in the HubSpot pipeline, it's going to collect a lot of your drop off data, but be really clear about what your deal stages are and what the exit criteria is between deal stages. Because when you do that, you'll start collecting some of these metrics. And then when you hire a rep, you have a sense of what they would be able to do. I realize that a lot of times founders aren't going to do a lot more detailed tracking because they're doing all of the sales themselves. So what I would say in that case is ask the founder, or if it's you do this, to spend 2 weeks being really diligent about their tracking for any outreach metrics, so cold calls or calling inbound leads, etc., to get a sense of what your metrics are. And then you would do that at periodic intervals just to make sure you have a sense of what your conversion rates are. And then that way, when you hire a rep, you have some historic data that you can compare them to. Okay, let's go down here. Okay, and then Max, yeah, I already answered your question. So those are all the questions I see here. I'll give you guys another minute here to ask a question if you have it. I'm going to repost the survey. Thank you for tolerating my car live class, which actually was kind of fun. I enjoy it. I should have been driving this whole time too. That would have been dangerous, but more exciting. Anyway, so I just posted a survey there. If you have a time here, I'd really appreciate you if you fill out the survey. There's a lot you can be doing on a Thursday morning or afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in, and you chose to spend some time with me. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye now.